So, this is my 1996 Miata, and I had the airbag computer fail on me. The airbag light was constantly on, so I'm going to try to repair it. There are some really good dashboard removal videos that I'm going to put in the description, so I didn't want to duplicate that, but I did want to show you for specifically, at least the 1996 model year, this is the airbag control module. So that's what failed. We're going to try and take that out and repair it. Now, I had an idea to make it more easily accessible in case this repair doesn't work, to potentially relocate it to somewhere around down here, so if it fails again, you don't have to pull the dashboard back off. But I read somewhere that there may be potentially like some of the crash sensing functionality, including like some accelerometers and stuff, actually inside the control module, which then means that you really shouldn't relocate it. If you do, it definitely has to be rigidly mounted, because the accelerometers in there are then going to have, you know, they're calibrated for a certain threshold. So that could mean the airbags wouldn't deploy if you mount it any kind of way other than really rigidly. So I think I'm actually now leaning back towards just leaving it in that stock location. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, this is a little involved. Thank God I have a second car to drive while this is going on. Here's the dashboard. So let's pull this thing out. We're going to try and repair it. Okay, so this actually sucks way more than I thought it was going to. So the computer is held to this support bracket with 4 Phillips head screws that go vertically up. But to get the bracket off, there's these 2 guys at the top, but there's also 2 that hold it to the firewall. Can't really get it in frame there, it's right there. You have to get those off. So for actually getting the airbag computer out, you do, it seems, need to take off the bracket that it's mounted to. So that has 4 bolts, or 4 nuts. 2 are on the top here. Those are fine. There's 2 under there that are on the firewall. Those suck, but I was able to reach it actually with a U-joint wobble socket, 10mm. So I don't think I have to pull this whole thing out anymore, which is great, because I think those are the heater core coolant pipes. So let's see if that works. And after all that, voila, stupid airbag computer. And make sure you drop both bolts, nuts, whatever. I did it. Obviously it was going to happen. We get those out. Oh boy. And those are the 4 Phillips screws that we're going to take off to get the computer off of its mounting bracket. Woo! Now get those screws out so this thing comes off. And here's our airbag computer. We have to try and crack this thing open. And for the bottom panel, looks like there are 4 plastic tabs, 2 on each side. We're just going to take a flathead screwdriver like that, pop them out. Oh, okay, did it by accident, it was easy. And here's our PCB. Got a bunch of screws, at least these 4 brass ones to take it out, probably these guys too. Just going to take them all out and hopefully finally get a look at these likely blown capacitors. Alright, new problem. These look like 2 security Torx screws that appear to be holding the internals in addition to the bottom. So I'm going to have to go buy a set of security Torx sockets to get those out. So sounds like a good time to give up and go to the pool.
Found the right screw tip. It's a T20H. Okay, a T20 security Torx. There we go.
So here's our airbag computer. The 2 big electrolytic capacitors here do not appear to be leaking or anything, but that can be hard to tell. So, since that's the most common thing to fail, I am going to desolder them and then measure them with a capacitor tester that I got. Because you can't use a regular multimeter, most regular multimeters, to check capacitors since they block DC. So this is just a new capacitor example. That's not a replacement, it's just a different one that I knew was good. And that thing reads it as about 100 microfarads, which is what that guy is. So this tester works. We're going to desolder these guys and test them. So here's some of the stuff you're going to need. Soldering iron and a solder sucker, which, click this thing down, heat it up, and then hit the button to suck it out. So if you trace the capacitors to the other side of the board, we're going to be doing those 2 just to the right of my fingernail, and those two. The other thing you can use instead of the solder sucker is solder wick, this stuff. I'm going to try that since that guy wasn't behaving. Alright, I did it kind of a shitty way because I got impatient the solder wasn't cooperating, but held the soldering iron on one of the holes and then just tried to bend pull the capacitor sideways like that, and one of them popped out. So I'm going to keep going with that method. And then here are the capacitors we're going to measure if I didn't burn the leads on them too much. When you're hooking them up, the negative side on electrolytic capacitors is this strip. Something like that. Alright, we've got one of them hooked up. This is the 3300 microfarad one. Oop. Okay, well, it works. Close enough. So that one's probably okay. Let's move on. And we've got the other guy hooked up now. Again, the black stripe is negative. Black stripe in this case. The stripe is negative. It's the 2700 farad one. Oh, okay. Well, that one works too. Okay, so apparently neither capacitor is dead, so there goes my lead for that idea. I don't know what's broken with this computer anymore. Not that I ever did, but that sucks. We'll have to probably just buy a new one then. But that's how you would check and repair them if the capacitors were actually the faulty part in this particular 95 to 97 model year Miata airbag computer. So yeah, the situation sucks with these computers because they're discontinued and it turns out you can't really find them anymore. But I did manage to find a replacement one on eBay, so I'm gonna try to install this one. I'm installing this one. I will worry about it later if I want to try and figure out how to actually repair these guys. But for now, this one is going in. All right, so for those bottom two bolts on the bracket, it's kind of tricky because you have to do it on a wobble socket. But I found a hack job that seems to work where, since these bolts are 10 millimeter, if you use an 11 millimeter socket with a little bit of tape and just kind of wiggle that in there and jam it in, that holds it well enough to then slap this socket onto the wobble thing. And then you can get that in there, get it started, and then after that, after it's threaded on, you can then switch to the 10 millimeter and do it all the rest of the way. Woo! So here's what it looks like when you get that tape thing on there. This thing's gonna stay in focus. You can just gotta get it threaded on like that, and then stay in focus. Pop that off, and there you go. And then just use some long pliers to get that residual tape off of there. Sorry, it's hard to film. So here's a comparison of the two airbag computers I was working with. The one on the left is the busted one that was in the car that failed and had the airbag light turned on permanently. The one on the right is the slightly different version that I was lucky enough to find on eBay. You can tell that the capacitor layouts and sizing are slightly different. But yeah, the one on the right is the internals of the one that I managed to find on eBay and did end up working in the car.